Hey, what's up, guys? How's everybody doing today? Good, I hope. In this video, once everybody hops on, I had a few people ask me questions via messages, email, and several different avenues, really, about this year's dust storms that we've been seeing over the last couple of years. What's this year looking like? Hey, what's up, guys? We're going to take a look at that. We're going to take a look at the 2020 hurricane season, what it could potentially have the potential to do. I'll have to take a look at some things, and I'll kind of give my 2 cents worth, whatever that's worth. What the pollen's going to be like this year, allergies, just a basic overview on that. Monsoon 2020. Will we see a monsoon out here in the desert Southwest? Planetary alignments and earthquakes. You know, we're going to take a look at that and see what could possibly be in store for the month of March. You never know. UV. Wildfires and droughts. In fact, I just saw something about droughts and a red flag warning. We'll go take a look at those areas. And then just a quick update on Comet Atlas. I haven't found it yet. I'm still trying. Not close enough yet. Got a little ways to go before, I'll be able to get it. Pictures should start to be coming in. And then we'll definitely about it, possibly see it on the stereo spacecraft. We've seen some really good ones on there before. And if this is anything like the ones we've seen in the past, should be a pretty good one. But that's still a couple of months away, at least. But before then, we should be able to see it in the sky pretty easily. Not only early morning sky, but possibly daytime sky event. Possibly, I don't know. Don't know for sure, but might be able to check that out. If we can see it, trust you me, we'll be on it doing live streams every day. But that's a pretty rare event. And if it is out there, we're going to watch it every day. Because it's not every day you have a daytime comet come around. Pretty cool. So hopefully it'll be a good one. But you just never know. It's like meteor showers. They're predictable, but you don't know till you get in the meteor shower, actually what's going to happen. You don't know how many times I've went outside in anticipation of possible meteor shower outbreaks and see two, see one, and skies be crystal clear. Not a cloud for 1,000 miles. 1, 2. So that's why I still go out occasionally for meteor showers, but I'm not going to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning like I used to because they're so unpredictable. I do record just in case. So I have the recording in case there is a meteor shower. I'll have the recording to share with you guys. But I've gotten up and went outside too many times to see one. And sat out there for hours and drag equipment and the scope and the camera and the laptop and see one. So they're unpredictable, kind of like Comet Atlas. Unpredictable, but you never know. You never know. It might be a really good one. It's from the Great Comet of 1844. It's like a distant relative of that comet, so might be a good one. Like I said earlier in this video, we're going to talk about, if you guys remember, and I know most of you do because you're wide awake and on the ball. You guys really are. Remember the global dust storm back in 2018? And remember, there was another dust storm, not only on Earth, but on Mars. You guys remember that? There was a global dust storm on 2 planets at the same time. I mean, that's pretty rare. That happened back in 2018. Also back in 2018, we saw those wild water anomalies all over the globe. Also back in 2018, we saw the wildlife acting strangely. So that's kind of why I reviewed all that a little bit in the last 2 live streams, because 2018 was a strange year. If you guys hadn't noticed, it was a very strange year. And to go along with all the stuff that went on Earth, you know, you had Mars go into a full-fledged global planetary dust storm, which isn't unheard of. It's happened in the past, but it's pretty rare. And then to have Earth at the same time, you know, it's a pretty rare event. So there was a lot of unusual things occurring on Earth and on Mars in 2018. And speaking of 2018, because I've had people ask me about the dust storms that we've been seeing in the last 2 years that preceded hurricane season. Because in 2017, if you guys remember, and I know you do, we had a big hurricane season, especially in North America. You had Irma, Maria, Harvey. It was an unbelievable year. In fact, if you go here to Zoom Earth, where I'm at right now, we're looking at 2018. We're going to go back to 2017, and I'll show you Hurricane Irma on here. But it was after this year is when the dust storms really started cranking up, and they started making their way consistently all the way across the Atlantic Ocean into North America. We had Sahara dust out here in Arizona. You could see it on webcams in the Gulf of Mexico, Louisiana, Texas, quite easily. Sahara dust traveling over 4,000 miles. So the dust started carrying a long way, seemed like, after this hurricane right here. And what you're looking at is Hurricane Irma as it became, right there, a Cat 5 back in 2017. And we followed Hurricane Irma from shore to shore, from Africa to North America, every single day, every hour of the way practically. We were on it. And Irma made landfall as a big storm, you know. And then that was right after Harvey, and then Maria. It was just a very, very big year. Well, then 2018 came around. But if you notice in 2017, you don't see a lot of dust out here, do you? The hurricanes were ahead of the dust. The dust stayed pretty much local, off of the coast of Africa. You know, maybe a couple of 100 miles, 300 or 400 miles. You didn't see these gigantic plumes making their way all the way over to North America with ease. I mean, constantly for weeks on end, nonstop. You know, it's one thing to have a local dust storm and it stay over here and then kind of dissipate. I get that. It should happen. It's the Sahara Desert. I expect it. But to go for weeks on end, nonstop, it does affect the hurricanes. I've seen it do it. It puts a cap on the atmosphere, and these storms cannot rise up to the heights that they like to get in order to become major hurricanes. And it does put a lid on the formation of hurricanes. It does interfere with it that way. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be any. If they're in front of or behind these big, heavy dust storms, yeah, they can kind of do what they got to do as long as there's no wind shear. If there's wind shear, then, you know, the storm's not going to do anything. And that's like with Irma. There were a lot of things that had to line up just right for that storm to set a record like it did. No wind shear, no dust. The sea surface temperature, the whole path had to be, you know, quite warm. And, you know, it had all the conditions were extremely favorable for that storm's formation. If it would have ran into a wall of dust like that, it would have smothered it. And it would not have even probably become a Category 1. So right after Irma, you can see this trail of dust right here coming off of the west coast of Africa into 2018. It slowed down in the fall of 2017. And then there goes Irma, and then Irma went on to make landfall. There it goes past Cuba. And what we're going to do is hop up to 2018 real quick. But that's Irma, Cat 5, going past Puerto Rico and the Caribbean, right in there, Cat 5. Some people said they thought it was a Cat 6. It was so strong, you know, even though there's not officially a Cat 6, but it was that type of strength. So then we step up to 2018, and we go into, let's start the spring of 2018. Because 2017, we really didn't see these gargantuan dust clouds coming across the Atlantic Ocean. You'd see dust storms come off the coast, and that's about as far as they'd go. It's like this, man. Let's say we have a dust storm out here in the desert Southwest, and the cloud goes off of the coast of the Pacific and carries all the way over to Hawaii. That's why I'm looking at these storms, you know, just baffled that they're easily jumping from coast to coast. You know, I can see it going off the coast, but my guy's traveling 4,000 or 5,000 miles. Well, then it ended up being a planetary dust storm. So we're in 2018, April. You can see the dust beginning. And it started in April, and then in May, it starts kicking into high gear. And by June, the beginning of hurricane season, you can see the dust starting to form off of the west coast of Africa. And it continued June, July, August, September, October. I'm not going to go through every day. We'll be sitting here for an hour. There were a few storms that barely made it to hurricane status, but you can see the dust kept the storms at a minimum. Go into August, and there was still dust out there. 2019, dust. Well, that's August, but if we go back into July, June, you can see there was a steady flow of dust pretty much all spring and summer long. This year, it's starting off at least active. It's going to be probably a pretty busy year with regard to the dust. It's probably going to be a lot like 2018 maybe. It's starting very early. And in 2018, it started early. And we can see dust now extending from the west coast of Africa to South America. And as we go up into the summer months and the tilt of the earth tilts, and this dust is going to tilt northward, and it's going to travel northward in a northward pattern from the west coast to the east coast of the U.S. and into the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, Puerto Rico. You can see the webcams, the beach cams on Puerto Rico and part of the Greater Antilles, Lesser Antilles. You can see walls of dust coming across the Atlantic Ocean steady during 2018 and parts of 2019. In fact, most of 2019. And then once hurricane season left and we got into the fall months, the dust slowed down. But you're looking at the dust right now over here at nullschool.net. And you can see already, first week of March, dust cloud. And that is exactly where, right here, that's where hurricanes form. That's Hurricane Alley right there. You think any hurricanes are going to form in there? No. Nope. It's just not going to happen. If they do, there'll be no more than a thunderstorm. They can't reach up through that and do what they got to do. Like we follow thunderstorms over here, those thunderstorms wouldn't be reaching 50 and 60,000 foot if the skies were like that. It's a big interference. It's just a lid on the atmosphere. And it does interfere with the production of hurricanes. So if we see that all spring, and if we see that all summer, more than likely, if there's any hurricanes this year, they'll form in the Caribbean or the Gulf. You won't see hardly any out here in the transatlantic, especially right there where Irma formed. Irma formed right there. So more than likely, we're going to see more dust like we saw in 2018 and 2019, where it does go transatlantic all the way across the ocean. And you can go back and look, and you can see the dust storms very rarely become, planetary issues. Will it again this year? You never know. We'll just have to wait and see. But I know in 2018 we had Mars and Earth at the same time in a full-fledged dust storm. Very interesting. I've never seen that at the same time. Seen dust storms on Mars, 2001, 2007. Like I said, it's not unheard of. It's just kind of uncommon. That's all. So more than likely, we'll see it again this year as we move forward into spring and into the summer months. The jet stream should change between now and then. We're in this pattern that's going across Mexico, the Gulf of Mexico, and the jet stream is carrying a lot of moisture across the southern states. Flooding, they're going to see probably river flooding locally in these areas you see here at the, these are where all the water gauges are. In fact, I'll put the link down below if you guys want to watch it or check it out. I usually keep an eye on the Mississippi. Right now, the Mississippi looks really good. These are all the river gauges across the U.S. in North America, actually. There's over 9,400. And you can see the ones that are red and purple and orange, and that's consistent with where all of the rain's been going. And everywhere else is pretty dry. Up in Oklahoma, parts of Nebraska. If I'm not mistaken, they are under a red flag warning today. You guys up there in Oklahoma, is it windy? They're talking about wildfires. That's what I'm hearing. So the map does kind of reflect that. You can see here where it's been very, very wet, and where it's been very, very wet, it's going to have an overgrowth of pollinators. So yes, there's going to be an abundance of pollen this year. You better believe it. It's probably already starting. So just know that you're going to have allergy flare-ups probably this year, big time. With all this rain, there's going to be a ton of overgrowth. Guys that have lawn care businesses down here in Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia. I mean, they just went from, especially in Georgia, you went from a drought, actually there was a water deprivation issue in parts of Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Central Georgia. And just within the last 3 months, you now have an excess of water. So, yeah, pollen's going to be off the charts. And you can see out here on the east coast of the United States, that's a big low pressure. And that's the one that we were talking about. It's been a few days ago. But that's the one where the two jets collided right there. The lower jet and the upper jet right there. See the big spin off the coast of New York and New Hampshire and Massachusetts. That's a big low boy right there, about 975, I think. Let me look. But that could have been a nor'easter. It's still bringing some moisture to the northeast, but could have been a big, big storm. I don't know if I have it on here. Yeah, I got it on here. Let's go to the Atlantic. We're going to look. I'm just curious to see what the central low got to. I heard it was going to be in the tropical storm force range. And that system is going to head towards the United Kingdom, Ireland, Scotland. You guys are going to see this storm here in a few. Oh, it's 971. So, yeah. That's a low one. Got snow. There's probably big sea swells. I think this is stirring up the wind out in the Caribbean. If I'm not mistaken, there's a gale warning in the Caribbean, gale warning in the Atlantic, and a gale warning in the East Pacific. That would be over here from this storm. Or this is part of it. It's not the entire reason, but this storm up here off the East Coast, it's all kind of tied together, but it's influencing that. And this lower jet, once again, see in parts of Cuba, Georgetown, Kingston, extreme forecast, all of this area right here, high winds, gale force winds today. Very, very windy. Speaking of windy, that's where we're at. We're over here at windy.com. And that's what I was talking about just about 10 minutes ago, about the possibility of wildfires in Oklahoma and Kansas. It's very windy. If I'm not mistaken, we go to the weather warnings. Yeah, right there in Kansas, the Oklahoma Panhandle. Fire weather watch. Sunday, or from the 8th, all day on the 8th, tomorrow. Multiple counties in Oklahoma and Kansas. Fire danger. Drought. It's very, very dry in those areas. Red flag warnings. Wichita. Wind advisory. Moderate wind advisory, but fire warning, or fire weather watch, and a red flag warning. And that's in Oklahoma. And if we go up into North Nebraska, red flag warning, critical fire weather conditions. So you've got drought conditions, fire watch warnings, red flag warnings in the central part of the country, and that would be west of the Mississippi. And then on the east side of the Mississippi, it's very, very wet. So we're out of balance. We need to find that golden mean. And right now we're out of balance because of those jet streams that I was showing you earlier. I mean, it's just wild through here. So the weather this year has the potential, at least for tornadoes and wild weather through the south and let's say east of the Mississippi. Wouldn't surprise me at all if they didn't have a big year. So be prepared. It's always better to be prepared and not need it than to not be prepared and need it. So just prepare for a very active spring. You know, we've already seen a couple of rounds of tornadoes, and don't be surprised if there's not many more. We got going on over here in Reno. Winter weather advisory above 4,000 feet, up to 10 inches of snow. They need it because California is looking at drought conditions for this year. And drought conditions can bring on wildfire issues. So they haven't had the snowpack in the Sierra Nevadas this year. So that's going to create a not so big abundance of water. I'm not saying there's going to be a shortage, but there's not going to be as much. The ground aquifers just got filled about 2 years ago in California when they had a series of atmospheric rivers, pineapple expresses. I'll show you what one looks like right down here. Just bring it up into central California. And that's a pineapple express. They're getting a small one right now. See it? Normally, a pineapple express or an atmospheric river will extend in some cases all the way back to Hawaii. Well, this one's not. It's actually kind of small, but nevertheless, it's bringing some weather into Idaho, Montana, and the Sierra Nevadas, which you can see right there. And that's the storm warning that they've got issued for a small portion of northwestern California. But right now, the Sierras are low on snow. So there's not going to be a lot of spring runoff. Summer snow melt. So there's going to be a, not a shortage, I'm not going to say a water shortage, but the beginning of a drought. So they could see wildfire activity. Wildfire in the middle of the country. Kansas, northern Oklahoma, the Oklahoma Panhandle, parts of central Nebraska, western Kansas, or I'm sorry, most of Kansas, western Missouri, and southwestern Iowa. And then over on the east side of the Mississippi flood, we're looking at probably big waves. Yeah, gale warnings all up and down the northern half of the East Coast for today. Big waves, strong sea swells, and then down here off the coast of Florida, same thing, big gales, and that's from the big storm that I just showed you off the coast. That's cranking a 971. That's in tropical storm force territory, not Cat 5, tropical storm, tropical depression, you know, those can be 980 and be considered a tropical depression. When you see the lines on here really close together, those are called isobars on a weather map. When you see the rings, see the black circles, when they're really super close together, that tells you it's very, very windy. And the farther out they go and the closer they are together, the bigger the wind field. Like you see up here in the North Atlantic, very, very rough seas up here, because the lines that are close together, like somebody planted a row of soybeans up there in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean, very close together. That's a huge wind field that extends over 1,000 miles wide. So that's sloshing that water around in the North Atlantic like a bathtub right now. And you've got another engine coming up there that's going to do the same thing. This one right here. The one that's currently at 971 off the north coast of the northeastern United States. So it's going to be up there in a couple of days. No later than 3. Not exactly sure the forward speed of that storm. We can probably tell here real quick. Be up there in 2 days by Monday. Looks like it may, at least the majority of it, stay north of Ireland, but there's going to be a big swath of high winds and heavy rain go through the majority of Ireland, Scotland, and part of the UK. And then there's another one coming in on Wednesday into Thursday. Another one on Friday into Saturday, small, albeit, but nevertheless. Another one on Saturday, possibly. I'm not saying these are going to be named storms, but the potential for severe weather, high winds, big waves is definitely going to be there. And then something in the central United States, while we're here, I want to take a real quick look at it. North America, let's go right here. I want to show you something for next week. It may not materialize because this is a forecast, and they can and will change, especially over 3 days out. And we're definitely more than 3 days out here, but we're seeing a big spinner off the desert, or off the coast of the Pacific, Southern California, desert Southwest, where there was an earthquake last night, or 5.5 off of the Mexico, California coast, or right on the line south of Yuma. We didn't feel it, but we got the alert. But there's a low pressure coming in that's going to bring rain to the desert Southwest, a little bit of snow to the southern Sierra Nevadas. But there's a storm system, or at least one that's forecasted for the center of the country, right in there. You're looking at potentially heavy snow in about a week and a half, a big snowstorm, which is not uncommon. It's still March, but that is a huge snowstorm if it materializes. And that'd be a week from Tuesday. So that's 10 days out. May or may not happen, but either way, they're forecasting a very large moisture cell coming over the northern tier, the upper Midwest, that could, according to this, that's a full-fledged blizzard right there. So temperatures must be going to drop, probably going to see a polar jet come into play. And if we have a polar jet come into play, the polar jet's going to dip down, and it's going to bring cold air with it. And the rule of thumb, cold air is boss. Just remember that. If you don't remember anything all about weather, just know cold air is boss. Simple as that. Cold air moves in, everything else moves out. So that cold air moves in, there's moisture coming up from the south. It's going to be in the formation of snow. And it looks like potentially a lot of it. So, again, long-range forecast. More than likely it's going to change some. To what degree, I don't know, but a lot more in the form of rain in the southern states. Look at that pattern. It's just storm after storm after storm. It's just there's another big storm. This is 2 or 3 days out, but look at that. Heavy rain again where they don't need it. And that, according to this map, is snow. See that? That could be a big line of snow here in a couple of weeks. Again, forecast can and will change. Looking at the Schumann resonance. Samantha sent me a message earlier and was talking about this area here on the Schumann, how it looks like a shroud. Look at that. Shroud of Turin. Schumann's been kind of active the last few days. And just in the last hour. Could be a variety of things. You got this unique signature right there. And then we are currently have just experienced a spike in the Schumann resonance. So not sure exactly what's up there. But you're seeing a spike in the Schumann right now as we do this video. How about that? Monsoon for the desert Southwest. I wanted to touch briefly on that because the last couple of years, I don't know, I'd probably say 3 years, we really haven't seen much of a monsoon out here in Arizona. And I'm not saying people look forward to the dust storms and things like that, but I know most everybody kind of likes to see a little bit of rain out here every once in a while, and that includes me. You know, it's dry out here. So rain is always welcome, and most people, you know, welcome the monsoon season because we like to get a little bit of rain. We don't like to see the damaging stuff. Nobody does, and we don't normally get that out here. But I think this year we will have a better chance for monsoons this year than we have in the last couple of years. And I'll tell you quite simply why. Because of the position of the jet stream. I think it's going to enhance the possibility of moisture and thunderstorm activity. In fact, we're seeing an example of that here in the next couple of days with regard to the position of the jet streams, but they're going to change over the next few days. But there's a storm right there that's going to bring moisture up into the desert Southwest. It's definitely not monsoon season, but I think monsoon season could have a chance this year to be much more than it has been over the last few years. And we're going to look at the jet stream right there. It's dust coming off of Africa. And you can still see that very possibly could. Those are motivators that motivate the weather around the globe. Those are the primary influencers, and there's a lot of secondaries and things like that, but you're looking at the primaries. That's what moves and shakes the weather around your planet right there. And that's what's causing all of this energy off the east coast of the United States right there. There's why you got gale force warnings off the coast right there. The jet. The big jet. So bring it on. So yeah, monsoon season, I think, in the state of Arizona is probably going to be active this year, more so than what we've seen, because last year we really didn't have a monsoon season. I don't recall even seeing maybe but one storm all year during monsoon season. Wasn't hardly anything. So I think this year chances are pretty good of seeing multiple monsoon seasons. But one thing I could do without, and I know most everybody would agree, that's the dust storms. Those dust storms can just stay away. The nice thing about the monsoon, if it rains ahead of the dust storm, then you don't have as much, if any, dust at all. But invariably, it seems like it rains after the dust already, which cleans things off. I'm not, saying it's completely bad. I welcome rain any chance we get it. But it seems like invariably the dust will blow and create a huge wall of dust. And then sometimes it doesn't even rain. That is just crazy. So anyway, monsoon season, I think, will be fairly active this year. Absolutely. All right, guys, I'm going to pull up some new pages, so just hang on with me just a second. I'm going to talk earthquakes. And I'm going to explain, in fact, I can do it right now. I'm just pulling up a couple new pages. You're looking at a weather video right now. I want to try to explain the best I can UV, ultraviolet light. We've all been exposed to ultraviolet light. If you're a member of planet Earth, you've experienced ultraviolet light. It's part of your world. It's part of who you are. And there's no escaping it. And it's a very important component of who you are and this whole planetary experience. But if the UV gets too high, and that would be in conjunction with a low ozone layer, then things can get out of whack, and you lose that golden mean, that perfect ratio that's responsible for growing the perfect ear of corn, the beautiful flowers you see, that beautiful sequence in light that's known as the golden mean. And when the human gets out of whack, not only the human, but the UV, it can influence that. That's why I check the UV all the time. Especially in 2018, when the wildlife creatures were acting very, very strangely. They were responding to something. They were trying to tell us something. So since we can't communicate with animals, at least very well, I was trying to see if maybe I could find something in the atmosphere related to the UV that was out of whack.
Oh, the roof is coming off!
You know? I mean, we're running around stuck in our smartphones.
Oh God, I hope mine's not.
The wildlife creatures we have to pay attention to because they're on watch. They're constantly on watch. They live out in the nature and the wild of the world. They know what the pulse of the earth feels like. And if the pulse of the earth is changing, they're going to let you know. And I think they were trying to tell us something and we didn't listen. I was listening to you guys. I saw a little bit of the wildlife behavior that was, not quite normal. I had an encounter with a hummingbird. It's not like I'm out in the middle of the timber either, though. I'm in a suburb. But the people that are out in the rural areas definitely noticed a change in wildlife behavior, and they were definitely trying to tell us something in 2018. 100% sure of it. But what were they trying to tell us? The UV was, it wasn't exactly where it should have been at times, but we don't have a concrete baseline of, say, the last 10 years of what the UV was. We know approximately what it should be, but to have an oracle of knowledge of the UV of Earth, no. And I'm not that oracle. I'm just a guy that's observing. I'm trying to learn. But one thing that we didn't want to see was UVC. And UVC was coming through, at least according to our instruments. And if that was the case, if it came through in very large amounts, based off of what we know about that, then that's not necessarily a good thing. But we were measuring low amounts of UVC on a consistent basis, and we didn't have the apocalypse. We're still here, right? Do you guys know what ozone is? Do you know what the ozone layer is? It's nothing but oxygen with the third molecule. Isn't that wild? If we didn't have surface water, we wouldn't have an ozone layer. Do you realize that? Your shield is the water that you see along the coastlines of these countries. That's your shield. That's what produces one of the shields that protects you. The evaporation of water molecules. It's not rocket science. O3, that's ozone. And when you have a deprivation of ozone in a certain area of your planet, it's because there's a lack of a molecule. It starts with those little invisible warriors that you cannot see. But wildlife creatures can. They can feel them. And in 2018, they were trying to tell us something. And you were telling me the other day, you're repeating yourself over and over and over and over. Yes, I was, wasn't I? Just like them wildlife creatures. And people wasn't listening. So I'm trying to figure out what they were trying to tell us. That's why I'm being repetitive. Something happened in 2018. Whether or not you realize that, I'm telling you, something happened. There was something that changed on planet Earth in 2018. So we're trying to figure out what that change was. We're all still here, but something did change. There was a shift in 2018. And I think there's still a lot of that residual hanging around. And I don't think it's ever quite left. I'm still getting, since I did the video, I've gotten another 2 or 3 more reports of wildlife acting strangely. A young lady sent a picture of a squirrel. She was sitting in her garage, and this wild squirrel walked in her garage and hopped up on her shoulder. Like a domestic house cat. I don't even think a house cat would do that. Started licking her on the face. You know. Somebody else just sent in something about a bird. A robin. Lady just walked up to it and picked it up. Like the robin was glad to go with her, you know. So yeah, something affected the Earth, the entire solar system in 2018. Affected Mars, especially the Earth. We saw water reacting to it around the planet. Remember how we were trying to understand what was going on with the water along the coastlines in 2018. Saw a big increase in hurricanes in 2017. And then all of a sudden in 2018, a lot of stuff with regard to wildlife and water all over the globe. So, UV is ultraviolet light, primarily from the sun. And it comes in 3 forms, 3 flavors, A, B, and C. AB is good, but not too much. C is not good for us inside the atmosphere. It's not supposed to even get through the atmosphere. Ultraviolet light is measured in long wave frequencies and short wave frequencies. A and B UV, which is the kind you're going to get when you're outside in direct sunlight. And it also is supposed to deliver vitamin D, free of charge to you, vitamin D, in long wave form, long wave frequency, all frequencies. UVC is a short
Oh, the roof
wave
is coming
frequency
off!
that cannot penetrate the ozone layer. That's where
Oh God, I hope
O3
mine's not.
comes into play.
Uh,
That third particle blocks that shortwave frequency from entering the atmosphere. That's why we measure. We're checking the overall health of planet Earth. Don't you get it? If we're measuring UVC on the ground, there's something not right upstairs with the O3. It's off. And what it told us was it wasn't off everywhere. Some areas there were denser amounts of O3, and other areas there were very thin amounts of O3. So it's just all part of, how's the planet doing? We're keeping track of Earth's vital signs. Have you ever seen that anywhere? You've seen that on my website. We do monitor Earth's vital signs constantly. And we're looking for change. And we saw change back in 2018. Yes, we did. So that's all. We're just observers trying to learn. I know a lot of people have asked, what is UV? And some had never even heard of UV. So that's about as simple as I can explain it. We monitor UV because it's part of our experience as humans on Earth. But not only that, it can tell you the overall health of your planet. If those numbers are off, then your planet's experiencing something more than likely in space. And it's going to affect everything like dominoes. The domino effect. And it starts up there and it comes down and goes all the way to the core of the Earth. And guess where we are? We're in the middle. Right, we're in the middle. So it's probably a good idea that we know what's going on above our heads, because that affects what's below your feet. That's all. We're just trying to learn. When we see the Schumann acting up, that's kind of like the wildlife creatures. Earth trying to tell you something. Earth is feeling something, and it's just trying to tell you, hey, feeling something from space, maybe a cosmic ray, a GRB, a gamma ray burst or something like that. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the apocalypse, but I'm just saying, it's feeling something. It's trying to tell you. It's trying to tell us. That's all. We're just trying to learn. So that's basically why we follow the UV and keeping an overall watch on the health of planet Earth, basically. If you go to the website, which we'll go there now, and you see a tab on the right-hand side, upper right, that says Earth's vital signs. And ultraviolet light, in part of our experience here, is one of those very important vitals. That's why we measure it. That's all. We're just trying to learn, trying to establish a baseline, I guess. We know what the typical parameters should be, but those are always in a constant state of flux. It depends on which season. I've had people ask me, why don't you measure in December and January? And you know what? Those are good questions. And I've answered them before, but I'll answer them again. I only measure them in the northern hemisphere summer, when the sun's at its highest point on my continent, where I stay. You know, the sun angle in December and January and February is very low, and I check the UV. I just don't do reports or videos on it because there's nothing to report, which is good. If I'm out there getting measures of 14 and 15 in February and January, then the atmosphere has got has collapsed, and I'm not getting readings like that at all. So that tells me that overall the atmosphere is really pretty good, you know. But here and there's some weak spots, and maybe that's normal. But we're just trying to establish a baseline. That's all. Just a baseline. What is the average normal for 10 year during a solar minimum? You know, what's the average baseline for, you know, Florida during the solar maximum? Things like that. But they're always in a constant state of flux, and they're never the same. There's no 2 days that are ever the same. But UV is ultraviolet light, and it's just part of living with a star. You can't avoid UV. You need it. You know, it's just who we are. So yeah, it's not all bad. It's a good thing. It's part of what makes all this work. If we didn't have UV, we wouldn't be having this conversation. That's all. So we'll make sure that it's not up in the 90 range, and then we surely wouldn't be having this conversation. We'd all be in caves. So the UV's overall good. We're just looking for change. That's all. Just looking for simple change. Speaking of change, supermoon in less than 40, well, right about 48 hours. Depends on where you live, I suppose. Right now we're at 93% illumination, waxing gibbous if it's clear in your area. Tomorrow, 98%. And then March 9th, that'd be Monday around 6 p.m., I think, local time. Oh, don't we say... I don't change the clocks, but I think probably most of the rest of you do. In Arizona, we don't change the time, but I think it's this weekend. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think time changes this weekend. And supermoon is on Monday. So supermoon, full moon. And I think there's another name for it. Supermoon, full moon. I think it's earthworm. Earthworm moon. Anyway, it's going to be big. Get your cameras out and get ready to take pictures. 6 p.m. local time. It should be coming up over your eastern horizon if skies are clear. So enjoy. If weather conditions are good, which I don't think they're going to be. I think we're going to have rain, possibly at least clouds on Monday. But if there's no clouds, I'm going to attempt to do a live stream while we're on the supermoon as it's coming up over the horizon. So we'll see if it's clear. I want it to be nice and clear. If it's not clear, then I'm not going to do it. But I do think the weather forecast is calling for rain, chance of rain because of that storm that I just showed you off the coast on Monday and Tuesday for the people of Arizona right here. Okay, there's Monday, supermoon. Well, supermoon might be good. Looks like clear on Monday. Monday evening, clear. Yeah, it's coming in on Tuesday, right there. Looks like late Tuesday morning, probably early during the overnight hours on Tuesday. California, especially along the coast of California, heavy showers in Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, all across here. So I think it's going to be an active weather season, especially monsoon-wise. So, that being said, supermoon might be in play for us Arizonians. We'll have to wait and see. Might have a good chance of seeing it. And if so, we're going to record it and do a live stream. And we're going to check it out. So I think I've explained the UV, guys, the best I can. UV is a important part of this whole Earth experience. And we need it, but we need it in the right format. We don't want it, at 60. UV should never be over 14 in the summer. I mean, it can be. It depends on where you live. The closer to the equator you are, the stronger the UV is going to be. The farther north you are, up the latitudes, let's say you're up into Great Britain, northern Scotland, Norway, Denmark, especially up inside the Arctic Circle, the UV should never even be near 10, even during the height of summer, because the atmosphere is always thicker up there. So the sun angle never gets high enough to deliver high UV. But if the UV gets very high up in those areas, that tells you that your atmosphere is more than likely changing, or the output of your star is changing. One of the two. So the equator, where the atmosphere is what? Thinnest? More UV. Where the atmosphere is thicker? Less UV. So it's just kind of general rule of thumb. During the day, whenever there's you can see your shadow. If you can see more of your shadow, there's less UV in your world. If you can't see your shadow, that means the sun is directly above your head, then you've got more UV. So it's just kind of how it goes. So that's why the upper parts of Earth are normally cold and ice covered and snow covered. But I think with the higher UVs, it could be accelerating snow melt. Just a theory, just thinking outside the box, that's all. Just thinking outside the box. Maybe that's why Greenland was melting so quickly. I don't know. Don't know. All right, guys, I'm going to switch over to hang on just a second. We're going to talk about planets and planetary alignment coming up this month. Not an alignment, it's not that simple, but just take a look at the solar system. Current position and where we'll be at the end of the month. I think the end of the month we could see some earthquake action the last week of the month. Let me get this thing reconfigured here. Hang on. There we go. Okay. So, all right, cool. Hang on just a second. Let me get this up. All right. And here we go. Here's the solar system. And that's where we are and our neighbors. Right now, today, March 7th, 2020. There's a couple of gas giants ahead of us, opposite side of the sun. They are in what's called retro with regard to us, kind of. There's Venus, Mars, and Mercury, and we say, oh, there's a planetary alignment. No. That's not... Yeah, it is, I guess, if you want to look at it that way, but it's not necessarily how I view it. I never have. And it's not really easy to explain either, but I'm going to try. A little bit. But if we go forward in time, and we're going to look at towards the end of the month, there's some positions that I would consider favorable for earthquakes. That's all. Is it guaranteed? Nope. But I've done enough research in the past that I have followed some patterns that from time to time do, yeah. So we're looking at the last week of March of 2020, right about in here. Let's say March 25th. If we look at our little position here in the galaxy, of the Milky Way galaxy, here we are. And we got gas giants over here, the ones that we know of. And then here we've got Earth, Venus, and Mercury. And remember the gas giants over here to the right. They play a big part of your world. They're heavy influencers of the energy that swirls around inside our solar system. Jupiter, even Neptune, Saturn, Uranus, they definitely do. But anyway, Earth is right here. Looking at Mercury, which really isn't a big player. Mars to our right, Venus to our left. But it's the gas giants. So the position of the gas giants tells me that more than likely in this week, and it's not a guarantee, there's other factors at play here too. But yeah, we could probably see some earthquake activity at the end of the month. Sure. Over 6? Yeah. Probably so. Probably so. Is that a guarantee? No, nothing's guaranteed, but there's a pretty good chance by the end of this month that earthquake activity will increase. I know we've seen a steady pattern of earthquakes off the coast of Puerto Rico for a couple of months now, if not 3 months. And those will more than likely continue for a while, probably well into the summer months, believe it or not. So that's kind of the way I see it. But yeah, the last week of March, sure, probably see some earthquake activity over 6, quite possibly into the 7 magnitude quite easily. So we have to wait and see. Hopefully, whenever I look at this and see those types of things, I'm thinking, somewhere remote where nobody lives. Because Earth has always had earthquakes, it always will, if that's what we want to call them. They're just adjustments. It's always done it, and it's always going to. It's just part of the whole planetary experience. The continents have always moved. You can go to the website and look at that. Go under Ancient Earth Globe. Second tab from the top left-hand side. And it shows you the continents because of those earthquakes right there that you see on that globe. Those are the machines that move the continents. And they're in a constant state of motion. We don't always feel them, like the 5.5 that we had out here in the southwest. Didn't feel it. But that moved the continent a little bit, or it moved the land a few centimeters. Yeah. A big one like you just saw on there, that can move them a few inches. But over the grand scheme of things, it's just a few centimeters at a time, depending on how strong the earthquakes are. That's how these chain of islands were made that we see all over the earth. From earthquakes, volcanic activity. Sometimes, one influences the other. We see it on on the big island of Hawaii, Mount Kilauea, all the time. One influences the other. There's a constant back and forth between earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. That's how those islands were formed, you know. And if you look at the ancient Earth globe, you can see that parts of North America, you know, like Hawaii years ago, I'm talking millions of years ago, was a much different place. It was much bigger. And if you look, you can go back 170 million years. Arizona was in the same place 170 million years ago. Same place. Yeah. Arizona's old. Arizona is old school. You go back millions of years, you'll see North America looked very, very differently. In fact, unrecognizable 300 and 400 million years ago. But 170 million years ago, Arizona was still in the same place. Because there's not a lot of big earthquakes out here. But anyway, look for the possibility of large earthquakes last week of the month. Just possibly. Just possibly. And guys, I think I've covered pretty much everything that I wanted to cover in this video. I got a new one coming out tomorrow that's got a lot of new pictures in it you guys are going to like. So make sure to check that one out tomorrow. But in this video, I wanted to go over the dust this year, because last year we saw dust pretty much on a global scale. And especially the year before, 2018. Hurricane season, I really didn't get into that too much because I don't have the material up that I wanted to. I don't think this hurricane season is going to be much. I did touch on it briefly. I think if we do have any, they're going to originate in the Caribbean or the Gulf of Mexico. And I don't know. I just don't see a big hurricane season this year. And, you know, nobody wants to see a lot of hurricanes. And I don't think there will be this year. I really don't. Planetary arrangements, just looked at that. UV, I think I explained that pretty good, best I could. And Comet Atlas, I don't really have any news on that because I want to get my own news firsthand. I want to see it, I want to record it, and I want to give you a fresh recording straight from me. So, yeah, there's pictures of it out there. Those guys that have 14-inch telescopes, but I don't have a 14-inch, so I'm going to have to wait. So probably in a couple of weeks, I should be able to pull it in on a good clear morning. But I'm out looking at 5:30, and I have not been able to pull it in yet. And I haven't seen Jupiter purple. No. I look over in Jupiter, it looks like Jupiter. Yes. Got pictures of it. In fact, I had it in the scope 2 mornings ago. Jupiter and his moons. You can see 3 all the time, sometimes 4. And 2 mornings ago is 4. It was 3 and 1. 3 left, 1 right. But Jupiter looked perfectly normal, like I've seen it for many, many years. All right, guys, that's all I got for now. I appreciate you guys stopping by. And make sure you check out the new video. It'll be out tomorrow, loaded with content I'm pretty certain you guys are going to enjoy. Thanks for watching. Have a super day, and be safe out there.